Internet people, how y'all doing? You can't tell me because you're not here. Welcome to another socially distant episode of the Creative Differences podcast. I'm Dallas, and if you were a black boy growing up in the 90s, Netflix just got the rights to every show your older sister used to watch while you were in the room.
Hi, everybody. I'm Gabby, and I'm only here so I don't get fined.
And hey guys, it's Demi, and I had a hard time sleeping last night, so I didn't fall asleep until 4 a.m. Welcome to
Ooh.
another episode of Quarantine Watch.
We're on the same page to me.
I could not sleep. Welcome to another episode of Quarantine Watch. Today we are doing part 2 of our TV series section, where we will continue telling you guys all about the TV shows that we've been watching throughout the duration of this quarantine.
Yep, that's the plan.
Yeah, so we have each chosen about 5 shows that we are going to talk about with you guys today. So yeah, let's not waste any more time and let's get into it. Dallas.
So if you listened to the last time we did this, then you know that I start all of mine by saying a brief hint / sentence / description / whatever I want about the show and then see if they can guess it. So first up, people call this show the white version of Atlanta, which feels reductive, but both shows are fire.
Dickie, little Dickie.
That is correct. It is
Dave.
Dave.
It's called
Dave. Sorry. Sorry.
Yes. Dave is created by Dave Bird, aka Lil Dicky, and Jeff Schaefer, who created the show The League and directed the movie Euro Trip. Remember that?
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Scotty doesn't know.
Oh, that's the best part.
Yep.
Yes, the only part that I remember from that movie. Anyway, so stars Lil Dicky, Taylor Meshach, Gata as himself, Andrew Santino, Travis, Taco Bennett, and Christine Coe. All of those people are absolute treasures. It has one of the best supporting casts ever, especially Taylor Meshach and Mike and Gata. Everybody. See, I was just going to list everybody. For those who don't know what it is, summary. A neurotic mid-20s suburbanite's convinced he's destined to be one of the greatest rappers of all time. Now he's got to prove it to everyone else. Basically, it's Lil Dicky's life, but funnier.
Fictionalized?
Yeah, it's like
Dramatized?
It's mostly fictionalized, mostly dramatized, but there are some parts that I think probably just happen. Like the season finale, he goes on the Breakfast Club. Like there are added elements to what happens, but the interview kind of goes the way that it did in real life when he went to the Breakfast Club. They just make Charlamagne a little bit meaner on the show.
Oh.
Yeah. I talked about the show on the podcast before, but we were only like 2 episodes in at that point. So it was great and it was funny. But since then, it's done a whole lot more. Gabby, did you finish the season?
No. I'm sorry.
Oh my God. I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, don't please.
But, well, how
well,
far did you
no,
get?
Go ahead. You know what? Go ahead. It's on me for not finishing it.
Okay, I'm not going to. Did you get to the episode about Gata? And it's like,
no, and I'm like, I don't know if
Goodness
I'm
God.
ready for that one because.
But you heard about it, so you know what happens.
Yes, I heard about it.
Okay,
I don't know
cool.
what happens, but I know what it's about. Like,
Got it.
generally speaking.
So yeah, I can go into my next point, which is the show is obviously hilarious, but also like the emotional points hit really hard, harder than I had expected a show from Little Dicky to go. Like he doesn't come off as someone whose show would handle serious issues like that on screen. But like there's an episode about Gata's mental health and people are still talking about it even though it came out like 4 months ago. There's also an episode with Dave and Allie and their relationship, and it takes place at her sister's wedding. And that one I won't say what happens because spoilers be heavy. But it's on point, and she's amazing. Everyone's amazing. Also, last thing I will say about the show is that it's really cool because it gets to show Lil Dicky's rap skills, and they're shown in a way that kind of like works narratively for his character progression. Like scenes where he'll be afraid to rap in front of people, but then at the end he'll finally get over it, and then you get to see like, oh, he's really good at this. Or scenes where he goes to the Breakfast Club and has to prove himself. It's very dope. If you like Lil Dicky, then you have an interesting sense of humor like me. So I think you'll like the show. It's, I think at this point, FX's highest rated comedy ever. And they're getting another season because it's amazing. So check it out. It's on Hulu because FX is on Hulu now.
I have a question.
What's your question?
It's higher rated than Atlanta?
Apparently.
Holy moly.
Yeah. I don't. It's wild.
Wow.
Gabby, what's yours?
Oh wow, it's my turn. Okay. So I have a couple. None of these came out this year. These are all like they're not rewatches for me, some of them, but they are all already came out. And my first one is an anime, and it's called Cells at Work. And
Interesting.
oh my God, is this adorable? Okay. Cells at Work is about cells in a human body, except they're anthropomorphized. They just look like people.
Osmosis Jones.
Kind of like that. It's kind of like
Osmosis
that, but
Jones.
anime. And you follow, instead of a white blood cell, you're following a red blood cell. And then what I like about it is like, so Osmosis Jones like generalized all white blood cells, but there's a bunch of different kinds of white blood cells. It also like shows the different kinds of cells and it explains them, and there's a cute little red blood cell and you're just following her around and she just wants to do her job, and then like different diseases keep like getting in the way, and it's the body fighting like foreign diseases and like body borne diseases, and just like, and this cute little red blood cell keeps getting caught in the middle and she just wants to deliver, oxygen and nutrients and collects carbon dioxide, but she keeps getting wrapped up in all this stuff, and then she has this weird little love story with a white blood cell. It's amazing. And
Gabby,
the
this sounds like the most on brand show for you
I was about
ever
to
made.
say, it's just like, ooh, look, anime, but science.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Like
That's what it is.
science in the terms of blood cells
It's like
having love stories.
it's pretty good. And actually what happened was a supervisor at my job like came into my office once and was like, "I know you have a degree in bio," and the undertone of it was also, "I know you're an enormous nerd." Um
Yeah, that's what I
and
was
I
thinking.
just and I was just watching this anime called Cells at Work, and I just feel like it's up your alley, and I was like, "I'll check it out." And then I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And I watched the whole thing and it's adorable. So I highly recommend Cells at Work. If you're looking for a quick little anime, I think it's only about 20 episodes, if that, and it's just like one season. It's adorable and it's also educational and I really liked it.
Where do you watch it?
On Netflix,
Oh, nice.
and it is 13 episodes.
Dope.
Speaking of Netflix shows, I recently watched Cursed, which is the latest Arthurian legend adaptation. It's about a teenage sorceress named Nimue who encounters a young Arthur on her quest to protect a powerful and ancient sword. It's based on a graphic novel by Frank Miller and Tom Wheeler. It stars Catherine Langford, Devon Terrell, Gustav Skarsgård, aka my second favorite Skarsgård brother, Daniel Sharman, Lily Newmark, and Shalom Brune Franklin. I found the show to be really enjoyable, but I kind of thought it was I think it's a little middling. Like I'm like, yeah, this is good, but like it's not amazing. It has like potential to be really really great, but it does get better the longer that you stick with the series. And the visuals also get better as you go along. I think the cast is really great. The only thing that I really really, really, really did not like about the show, like for sure, I was like, please, if you do a second season, please take this out of the show, is that they have these stupid scene transitions. Oh my gosh, they're awful. Please stop.
What do they look like?
Like, I understand where they were coming from. I get the idea because they would take whatever the last frame was and they would make it into like a piece of artwork. And then the transition would kind of like, let's say, like, you see somebody is leaving on a horse or
Uh-huh.
something. So it would become a drawing of that person on the horse. It's probably more like a silhouette of them and it would be really colorful. And you would watch the horse run off to wherever they're going next or whatever.
Oh,
Okay.
this sounds like something from PBS in the 90s.
Yeah, like I feel like you have to see it to understand.
Yeah.
But like the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, we didn't need that. And then it just goes throughout the rest of the show. And I was like, don't do this. Don't. Like they're like pretty on their own, but they do not belong on this show.
Okay, for you. So they just don't fit the show.
Yeah, and I saw somebody on Twitter also complain about them, and I was like, "Oh, thank God I'm not alone." Oh, I thought it was just me. But yeah, I have, as you guys know, I have a deep intrigue with Arthurian legend and all the adaptations of them. So it kind of held my interest because I was really curious as to what they were going to do with these characters, some of which are, some of my favorite characters. So that was pretty cool. Came to the realization that when you're doing Arthurian legends, you can change anything you want and it still works.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's pretty cool. I need more of this version of Arthur and Morgana because I love them, but also they're black, but also their characterization is great. And also Arthur using a sword. Just, whew, yes, please.
You said Arthur is black?
Yeah,
Oh, that's all you need to say.
exactly.
I'm in. It's already my favorite version of King Arthur.
Oh, Arthur and Morgana are black. Yeah.
Perfect.
It's great. More Daniel Sharman, who was on Teen Wolf. That's never a bad thing. He's really good on this show as the antagonist. I was really sad though because he wears a hood for most of the show. And so that means there's a lot of shadow on his face and you can't really see his face. And like Daniel Sharman has a very nice face. And then there's Billy Jenkins, who plays a character named Squirrel, and he's like one of the cutest child actors out there. And like, I've been a fan of his since I saw him on Humans. He's just the cutest little kid. Oh my gosh. He's adorable with his little British accent. Plus, I love Squirrel because Squirrel is just like, I want to fight. And it's like, okay, but you're tiny. You can't fight. Like, I get it. You want to fight, but you're tiny. You're like probably 10 at the oldest.
Oh, baby.
It's like, baby, no, you can't go fight. You must stay home.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would recommend it if anybody's interested in how they adapt the legend, or if you're looking for like a fun fantasy show. I wouldn't mind if they do a season 2 because they kind of, in the legends, Nimue is sometimes the Lady of the Lake, and in this version, she becomes the Lady of the Lake. I'm curious as to where they would go further after the end of the season. Plus, I'm starting to like Catherine Langford, but also Black King Arthur. So, well, I mean, he's not king yet, but that's why I would like to continue watching the show. I would like to see him become king. Dallas, what's show number 2?
Number 2 for me. Speaking of Netflix shows again, this one, Jason Bateman is a cold piece of work.
Is that Ozark?
Of course.
Because last time it wasn't Ozark.
Last time it wasn't Ozark.
Last time it wasn't.
Yes, it was a surprise. The other time it's Ozark. Yeah, I watch anything with Jason Bateman in it because he's one of my favorite people. So this show is created by Bill Dubuque. I don't know how to say his name, but he wrote The Judge and he wrote The Accountant. I haven't seen The Judge, but The Accountant's pretty dope. Also created by a guy named Mark Williams, who is not the Mark Williams that plays Arthur Weasley. But I have no idea who this man is because he has a really common name and he doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
Oh, no.
Stars Jason Bateman, Laura Linney, Julia Garner, a bunch of other people that I'm not going to name right now. But yeah, Jason Bateman manages to be great at drama as he is at comedy. But in this show, he still gets to be pretty funny sometimes. It's weird. Like, the show is super dramatic and super violent and tense. But just the way Jason Bateman always manages to play that, like, straight man, it carries over into this show. I don't know if you guys have seen people like on Twitter like making memes and stuff about how he just always has this like kind of calm face. Like a cartel leader would be like on the phone with him, like, I'm gonna kill you and your family. And Jason Bateman's like, well, if that's what you gotta do, then
oh my
like, obviously that's an exaggeration. There are times when he does get scared and like intense, but like he's a cold piece of work. Ice water in his veins. Marty Bird is that dude. Also, this time around for this episode, I'm putting IMDb summaries because I realize I just start talking and some people don't know what the shows are about. A financial advisor drags his family from Chicago to the Missouri Ozarks where he must launder money to appease a drug boss.
Oh, so that's why it's called Ozark.
Yes. Also, speaking of the cast, this season, season 3 added Tom Pelphrey from Iron Fist.
Tom Pelphrey.
And dude killed it. He's amazing. Like, his character ranges from frustrating to endearing. There are times when he's your favorite and there are times when he's the most annoying character on the show. But he plays it all super well. Dude's great. My favorite character, my favorite character is Ruth, played by Julia Garner, because she has one of the best character arcs ever. From the beginning of the show, the first time she meets Marty, she's like this ringleader of like this redneck family who's like, you're not from around here. You look like you got money. We're just going to kill you and take your money.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, she's like 16.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, she's like running the crime family of like her uncles and her cousins, most of which are older than her. But then, by season 3, she's like one of Marty's most trusted allies and is like helping him run his whole operation. She's like 18 years old and she runs a casino for him. She's fantastic.
See, when Riverdale does it, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I remember seeing something. I think I saw like an episode of Riverdale that maybe Jordan was watching, and one of the girls was like running a restaurant or something. What was it?
She runs a speakeasy. Well, no, I think she actually does own the diner, and then she also runs a speakeasy underneath the diner. But they also do gambling in that speakeasy, and they sell liquor, I think. So I'm like, you're
confused because I was like,
she's not even legal. Yeah.
I was so confused. But yeah, I don't know if I watched the show, it would make sense to me.
No, it still doesn't.
Okay, that's what I figured. Yeah,
I watched the show while that was happening, and no, it doesn't.
this show does that, but it does it well in a way that makes sense. Like they show Ruth being smart and capable and like adept at this kind of stuff, and she just didn't have any kind of guidance because her family's a bunch of rednecks. But Marty is smart and he's a genius at money laundering and all that stuff. So he's like, "Hey, help me help you." They become allies. She's like one of the best people on the show. Honestly,
she-
the show was. What'd you say, Gabby?
Oh, she won an Emmy for that role last year.
Oh, good, because she was amazing. I don't watch the Emmys, but I'm always happy when someone I like wins one.
Yeah, you want to see your people get recognition.
Exactly. The show as a whole is full of character progression. Like, I don't know if it's still called progression when people get worse, maybe regression. But
It's
just
still a progression. It's just not like a good progression.
yeah, they're
a
progressing
positive
to
one.
they're progressing to being bad people.
It's not a pro progression.
Exactly, it's a con progression. Congression. That's probably another word. But yeah, it starts with like a regular suburban family, and now they are all about that action. Like Wendy Bird, Marty's wife, played by Laura Linney, she is maybe the coldest person in the show at this point. They started off and she's like, "Wait, what's happening? What, Marty, what are you getting us into? Blah, blah, blah." And like season 3, she's like, "I'm buying up your land. You can get with it or get lost. I will kill somebody if I need to." Like, she is
Jesus.
amazing. That's another thing the show has going for it. Like, strong female characters everywhere. Wendy, Ruth, the cartel lawyer, whose name escapes me and I'm very upset. Oh, Helen. Helen is like big boss energy for everyone. Whether she's talking to like the cartel, she comes in, she's talking to everyone in the Ozarks. She's like, "Look, my boss will kill you if you don't do A, B, and C, and I'm not gonna lose any sleep about it. So get it done or you're getting shot." It's a great show. I think you guys would like it. Keeps you on edge pretty much the entire time up to the last shot, which is like something that I don't think anyone expected, because it kind of leads you into something that you kind of get worried about a certain character, and then an entirely different character has something happen to them, and they're like, "Oh, I guess we'll see what happens next time." And they are renewed for a 4th and final season, which is bittersweet because on one hand, they're getting another one. That's great, but that's going to be the end of it for me, and I'm going to be very sad. But how much more can you put Jason Bateman through, I guess? But yeah, that's Ozark. It's great. I'm definitely going to be talking about it again at the end of the year. Yeah, let's move on to Gabby's next thing.
Okay. I have a question. Have I talked about Documentary Now yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sort of. You talked about it when we were talking about
When I brought up Sherman Showcase.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm going to talk about Documentary Now like in detail. So, I've been watching Documentary Now. It's got, I believe, 3 seasons on Netflix now. And so what it is
These Netflix shows.
Right? Well,
Today it's sponsored by
technically yeah. I watch it on Netflix, but technically it's IFC.
Yeah, but nobody has IFC anymore.
That's true. Okay. So it's a show that spoofs documentaries. It's a really specific type of comedy, but it makes fun of famous documentaries. It makes fun of Hero Dreams of Sushi, crime documentaries about artists, like just anything you could think of, it makes fun of them. And it originally was just Fred Armisen and Bill Hader starring in it, and they would just star as different characters within the documentaries. But since Bill Hader has gotten increasingly busy, it now includes a whole host of guest stars, including like Cate Blanchett, Seth Meyers. It's also produced by Seth Meyers, which is why he makes frequent appearances in season 3. The first 2 seasons, though, are just Fred Armisen and Bill Hader. What's hilarious about it is season 1 is technically its 50th season, and Helen Mirren comes in and introduces every documentary. It's like you're watching a channel, like a TV Land channel, and she walks in and she explains the next documentary.
Oh, nice.
And
That's
why
awesome.
it's significant. And she's not playing it for jokes. Like, she's going in and she's a high quality actress just telling you about this documentary, and then you go in and the documentary is like a full on spoof. And it's hilarious.
So it's kind of like a more played straight version of when Mary J. Blige was on Sherman Showcase.
Yes.
I think I have to watch this
but
show.
actually played straight. Like she's
Yeah.
just coming in. And what's hilarious about it is like you were in Mr. Van Leuven's film history class, right?
Yes.
He made you watch like what was the name? The documentary about the very first documentary, the like silent movie that's about Inuit people
Nanook
and
of the
like
North?
yeah, that
Yeah.
there's a documentary now version where it makes fun of it and it's called
Oh,
Canuck.
goodness.
And it's hilarious. And it's silent as well.
Oh, nice.
Basically any famous documentary it spoofs it and it's hilarious. It's like there's like a music documentary where it like spoofs the way that people approach music documentaries and it's hilarious. It is a really really specific niche corner of like film people.
Yeah.
Like you have to know documentaries in order to kind of get why it's ridiculous.
Okay, I see.
I mean, we're film people. We definitely have watched documentaries, and you guys studied film in college.
Gabby watches documentaries, and me and Dallas just studied film in university. So
Yeah, exactly. You guys had to watch them. I watched them for fun.
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't watch a lot of them. To be honest, that was not a lot of my film education.
Fair. But you could watch the show and get it, and it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's so niche. It's just super, super niche, but amazing at the same time. First of all, they know their stuff because you have to know your stuff to spoof it. And second of all, it's like actually hilarious. I think what I like the most about it too is like the first two seasons were super low budget, and sometimes they would have to put together the fake documentary in like less than 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And at one point, they were going to do one documentary, and then they realized, oh, we don't have the resources we need for it. So they completely scrapped it and started over with a different one over a weekend. And I'm just like really impressed because you can't tell. I feel like they're able to do it because they have a background at SNL. And at SNL, you have to put a show together in under a week, skits and
Nice.
all. So you could see their SNL backgrounds coming in clutch. So I highly, highly recommend Documentary Now. It's ridiculous and hilarious. It's on IFC, but you can watch it on Netflix.
I might have to check that out.
Switching to a different streaming service over at Peacock, NBC's new streaming service, I checked out their new show, Brave New World. In a civilization where everyone belongs to each other, negative emotions are repressed by drugs, and privacy is practically non existent, the arrival of an outsider, John the Savage, turns the utopian society of New London upside down as he challenges the status quo. It's based on the dystopian novel by Aldous Huxley. It stars Alden Ehrenreich, Harry Lloyd, Jessica Brown Findlay, Hannah John Common, Joseph Morgan, Nina Sosanya, Kylie Bunbury, and Demi Moore. I really enjoyed the show, but I felt like sometimes it was almost too surface layer. Like it didn't go as deep as I was hoping it would go for such a novel that I've heard so much about because I've never read it. But I think that the show is at its most compelling when the characters are challenging their place in the world, and when we're focused on the more human aspects rather than the sci-fi aspects of the story. But it is a very interesting story, and I think the performances from the actors are really great. Like this cast is like stacked. I remember when the cast was being announced and like just being like, "Ooh, Alden Ehrenreich, I've loved him for years." Harry Lloyd, also loved him for years because Doctor Who. Jessica Brown Findlay, consistently catch her in different things. I've never really been like paying attention to her, but she's always in things and she's always really, really good in them. Everybody knows I love Hannah John Common.
Yep.
It's
This is true.
obvious. Joseph Morgan, who I love from the originals, and if you're a fan of his, you most likely love him from his work on the Vampire Diaries shows. And I've loved Kylie Bunbury since she did Twisted on ABC Family, but also she was really good on Pitched, which only lasted a season. And she was in When They See Us, and she was really good in that as well. So, like, yeah, the cast is incredible and they're all really good. The show is beautifully shot and it's got such gorgeous production design.
It looks nice. I saw a trailer for it while I was watching trailers, and I was like, "Oh, this is the show Demi was talking about. This is pretty as hell." Like, just
Yeah,
people
right?
dancing and popping little like boba drugs.
And having so much sex.
It looked like that. It looked like a lot of sex, like as much as you can show in like a trailer for a show, but not the actual show.
Oh yeah, it's a lot on that
Yeah.
show.
And
It's a
that's the
lot.
part of the book too. It's like the sex.
Well, question
Yeah.
to me.
Yes, sir.
I've never watched the show on Peacock. What are like the censorship levels? Is it like Netflix, like anything goes, or is it like
Oh no, this is
NBC.
it's a streaming service. Anything goes.
Okay, because like
It's-
Peacock is NBC's, right?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, but I guess it's like once you go on the internet, no rules.
Well,
there
less
were
rules.
orgies.
Holy moly! So like sensei orgies or like not
Not as
prominent?
I mean, they were like because since 8 the orgies have like an emotional like impact because these people are emotionally connecting. Brave New World, nobody is emotionally connecting even though they feel like they're emotionally connecting.
Ah,
So all of those ones feel really hollow and they should. It should all feel routine on that show and it does. Although they
okay,
are shot very well, just like Sense8 is also shot very well.
okay.
I think the show kind of starts off pretty slow, but like it picks up towards the middle. The end of the season, man, it ended so ambiguously and confusing. Like there's a cliffhanger, and like I was just like, I want to know what's happening, what's going on, where are we going with this? What is because obviously there's only one book, and I think they got to the end of it. And I've also heard that the show, it goes away from the novel pretty heavily. They kind of reimagined it to fit our more modern world,
Okay.
even though that book I've heard is very prescient and kind of predicted the way that we are now.
Of course.
I'm so I'm so curious as to what their plan is to continue. Also, one of the executive producers is Grant Morrison, who is most well known for writing comic books.
Dope. I like comic books.
I do too. It's an interesting show. I feel like it could have gone deeper, but it's good. Occasionally it's like really funny as well. I love the cast. Each and every single one of them does a great job. My favorite character is actually I feel bad because I'm like I'm so biased, but I think it's Hannah's character, Helm, cuz Helm is just so interesting to me cuz Helm is an artist, but Hannah plays her like a mad scientist.
Sounds fun.
Well, a drugged up mad scientist, which is really cool. There's a place called the Savage Lands. And the Savage Lands is basically where the normal people are who are not a part of this new utopian society. It's like people who were raised like we would be raised, but like basically kind of in poverty. And so the people in New London treat it as a theme park.
Wow.
So
Oh.
they go over and they take tours of the Savage Lands and they have like they have like little acts and stuff. I need to look up what all of their acts are called because it was so hysterical.
Sounds like some P.T. Barnum type stuff.
Oh
Or like
yeah, definitely.
Westworld.
That's kind of what it's supposed to be. They divide it up kind of like a Disneyland sort of thing. Like there's like a different like
So like they go to where the poor people live, and then they like do like different areas.
okay,
Like
so
Disneyland.
there's one of them is called the House of Want, which
Interesting.
basically tourists watch basically Black Friday.
Ah, that's yeah, I get that.
There's the House of Monogamy, which is they watch a wedding.
Nice.
In their culture, they don't get married, they don't do monogamy, they don't do anything like that.
Yeah.
Everybody belongs to everybody. When they were describing what a wedding is, the tour guide says it's a ritual designed to confine the core values of their culture: ownership, competition, jealousy, and strife.
Ooh. Ouch.
There's one called House of Consequences, which is prison.
Yeah, that
We
makes
don't
sense.
get to see that one. And there's a fourth one. I don't remember what it is. But yeah, those are like the three that are mentioned the most, though. So sometimes it's pretty freaking hilarious.
Interesting.
I think if you're into sci-fi just overall or like dystopias, you'd be pretty interested in it. It's gorgeous to look at. Like I said, the acting is really good. I think I'm going to watch the show again because I really want to focus in on the character through lines now that I've seen the show overall, what it is and what it's about. I kind of just want to focus in on the characters and their journeys all the way through.
I feel it.
That's Brave New World, which is on NBC's new streaming service, Peacock. I think you need to pay $5 for their initial premium so that you can watch all. How many episodes were there? 10? I think there were 10 episodes, but you can watch the first 2 for free.
Okay, yeah, because they have like a free version and a premium version, and then
Yeah.
their like original stuff is on their premium version.
Yeah, their original stuff is on the premium, but you can watch the first 2 episodes, I think, of almost all of their original content for free. And then it's $5 for the premium, but you still get ads.
Ah, the ads.
It's like $10 or $15 if you want to get rid of the ads.
It's like Hulu. Smart.
Yeah.
Smart job, NBC. It's a solid business plan. I don't like it, but I mean,
I read it like I
it's
don't like
really
it.
good business wise.
I respect
Like,
the hustle.
also, like I went on Peacock as well to check out, and you can see like all of their TV shows that are already out just for free. So if you want to just look at content, and you can watch movies and stuff, and you don't have to pay for anything, you can just watch it, and then there's just commercials. So it's like what Hulu used to be like 10 years ago.
But for NBC stuff or NBC
Yeah.
Universal stuff.
Yes.
Although I wanted Brave New World, so that's what I
so
was
you had to
interested
pay
in.
for it. Yeah.
All right, Dallas, what's next on your list?
All right, back to Netflix, of course.
Hey,
Next up is a show that kind of feels like Carrie, but with the horror switched out for teen angst.
did you watch the it's the Sophia Lillis show, isn't it?
It is the
Is that it?
Sophia Lillis show.
I'm Not All Right with This?
I am not okay with this.
That I was almost there.
Yes. So I am not okay with this. It was created by Jonathan Entwistle and Christy Hall. It stars Sophia Lillis, one of my favorite people, Wyatt Oleff, and Sophia Bryant. Summary is Sydney is a teenage girl navigating the trials and tribulations of high school while dealing with the complexities of her family, her budding sexuality, and mysterious superpowers just beginning to awaken deep within her.
I've heard of this show.
Superpowers.
What'd you say, Gabby?
I heard about the show.
Oh, yeah. So I saw the trailer and I was like, I'm a big fan of Sophia Lillis. I like superpower things. It seemed intriguing enough. I watched 3 episodes and I stopped. It wasn't really for me. I think Colin, remember Colin, guys? He watched it before me and he kind of told me like something about how he hates narration or like inner monologue kind of. And I hadn't seen it yet. So I was like, what are you talking about? It's a lot of just angry teenager inner monologue. I can only go so far with that because you get like a little bit of her superpowers peppered in between all of the angst, but it's mostly like she has a crush on this person, but this person is with someone else, and she hates the other person, and then her mom sucks, and she's mad at her mom, and it's just her narrating all these different things about why she's mad at all these different people, and just being very upset and very angsty. And I was like, nah, this ain't for me. I'm not okay with this. I would recommend it if you are not me, and it's on Netflix if you want to watch it.
Well, everybody else in the world is not you, so
Exactly. Well, not me or not Colin.
Gabby,
Jess.
your
Okay.
turn.
So I used to watch Community, and Community would always take hits at this show called Cougar Town. They would always like make fun of it. And I had like recently watched an episode of Community, and they took a hit at Cougar Town, and I was like, I'm gonna see if that show is streaming because I never watched it.
That's the Courtney Cox show, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I found it on Amazon Prime, and I've been watching it. I think I'm on season 4. There's 6 seasons. The first 3 were on ABC, and the last 3 were on TBS. At first, I was like, what is this show trying to do? And then I realized once it found its footing, it became absolutely hilarious. And it's created by the same guy that created Scrubs. So it's got that Scrubs humor, except it takes place in Florida. And
Oh,
it's
no.
just about yes, and they do bring up weird Florida things. Like
Oh,
at
no.
one point they all goes hunting for snakes. There's this one character who she just like casually peppers in messed up things about her past. And
Oh, Florida.
but like she looks really put together and nice, but then she'll say things like, yeah, that reminds me of my like third stepdad, that blah 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 blah. And you're like, what is this show? And it's
All right.
and then so the show is about Jules Cobb, who's a recently divorced mother. Her neighborhood friend Ellie Torres, another neighbor Grayson Ellis, her son Travis, and her assistant Lori. And they all kind of live in this neighborhood. They call themselves the cul-de-sac crew. And it's about their like hijinks and shenanigans. And it's got that like Scrubs humor where it like it's really lighthearted and like the characters get up to like very, very silly things. Jules' ex-husband like comes around her house all the time, and he lives on a boat in a parking lot. Um and they play this weird game called Penny Can. It's hilarious. It's just really funny, very
You say he
lighthearted.
lives on a boat in a parking lot?
Yeah, the boat does not float and it's just parked in a parking lot and that's where he lives. But so it's like, it's that Scrubs humor where it's like this weird absurd thing that nobody is questioning. It's like accepted and it's fine.
All right.
Like
Why
in
not?
Scrubs, they would get up to these like hilarious hijinks in the hospital and everyone was like, "We're fine with this." Um it's just a really funny show. It was on for 6 seasons. A lot of people are like, "This is just Scrubs with people in Florida," and I'm like, "It's not," but it is similar humor because obviously it was created by the same people. And there's one person that was actually on Scrubs that's on the show, and that is Krista Miller. She was Jordan in Scrubs. I highly recommend Cougar Town. It is hilarious and silly.
This is interesting. So my next show is High School Musical: The Musical, the series on Disney Plus,
Oh my god.
Oh, boy.
which I watched very early on in my quarantine.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember you talking about it.
Yeah. The students from the school where the High School Musical films were shot stage a musical production based on the franchise, is the general idea. It stars Joshua Bassett, Olivia Rodrigo, Matt Cornett, Sophia Wiley, Larry Saperstein, Julia Lester, Dara Renee, Frankie A. Rodriguez, and features Kate Renders as their theater teacher, Miss Jen. So, first off, I just want to say I think it's really, really funny that this show is supposed to take place. It's like they're like, oh, these are the students from the school where they shot High School Musical. But like, even then, the school in the show is still a fictional school because I remember the show having to take place or the movie takes place in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm sure the show takes place in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The movies and the TV show are shot in Salt Lake City, Utah,
Well, that's just disingenuous.
which
Also, they
I
shot the movie at 2 schools. I remember.
but they mostly shot in Salt Lake City. So when they said it in the first episode that they like live in Albuquerque or something, I was like, "What? No, but the actual school. Okay, I see what we're doing here." But yeah, I remember when they first announced the show, which was somewhat disappointing because I remember really wanting a High School Musical 4 back when the movies were like still popular and had just come out. Because I was a huge fan of the movies growing up. Because the first one came out when we were about 13, 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So it hit me right at the right demographic and I just kind of stuck with it. The TV show, I was like, nah, I'm too old to watch the TV show, but I'll give the pilot just to watch because I really want to see what they're doing with it. It's really cute. It's just a really cute show. It's a bit more mature than I was expecting. Like it's more mature than the actual High School Musical movies, which was surprising. But it's also like it's got this style where it's like Glee meets High School Musical mockumentary.
Oh my god, it's a mockumentary?
Yeah. It's kind of a mockumentary. Yeah, it does the thing where you're watching them do the story and then it cuts to the character talking directly to the camera about what's going on.
Oh,
It's so good.
I might watch that. That sounds hilarious. And just like teenagers doing it.
Yeah.
I love mockumentary style shows.
And it's a super easy show to watch because it's only 10 episodes and every episode is like a half hour or less. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to watch the pilot and ended up watching the whole show that day.
That sounds like you.
Yeah. And then I might watch it again because I didn't realize until after I watched it all the way through that there's a sing along version also on Disney Plus. So now I need to watch the sing along version. But all the stars are really talented performers. I especially like Olivia Rodrigo. She has like this indie pop kind of voice that I really, really enjoy. But they're all very talented singers. They're all very talented dancers, especially Sophia Wiley. Oh my gosh, her dancing on the show is ridiculous. I think there's really good music on there. Some of the songs are really good and relatable and kind of slap. But then they also do cover versions of songs from High School Musical because they're doing High School Musical. So occasionally you get to hear them do their own versions of High School Musical songs and I loved those. I own all of the soundtracks to those movies. So it's really nice to hear other versions of them and seeing how you can redo them or how you can kind of reshape them and make them sound a little bit different with these new kids. It's a good show. I enjoyed it. I recommended it to like my older cousins who also liked High School Musical with me. Lucas Grabeel, who is one of the original cast members, makes a cameo appearance in one of the episodes, which is really cool.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they get more cameos because they're obviously going to get a season 2. I'm looking forward to when season 2 actually comes out. I'm sure it's going to be super cute. but I'm hoping that they get cameos from some of the other stars. That would be really cool because I really enjoyed seeing Lucas, and Lucas actually sings too. It's not just a cameo; he actually sings. So,
Oh.
so yeah, High School Musical, the musical, the series. If you grew up watching High School Musical the way that I did, and if you had a love for it, you'll probably like this show. Dallas, it's your turn.
Yes. Next one is picture Inglorious Bastards, but made by an actual Jewish person.
Oh, that's the I know what show it is. It's the one on Amazon Prime, right?
It is the one on Amazon Prime. Hunters, because they hunt Nazis. Hunters is created by David Wheel. It stars Logan Percy Jackson Lerman, Al Pacino, who is not Jewish, and Lena Olin. Also a bunch of other people, like Ted Mosby. He's in there. I didn't expect him to be there.
He is?
He is. He's great,
Oh,
but
wow.
we'll get to him. IMDb summary. In 1977, New York City, a troubled young Jewish man bent on revenge is taken in by a secret group of Nazi hunters fighting a clandestine war against the cabal of high ranking Nazi officials in hiding who work to create the Fourth Reich. God, that was a mouthful. It's about some people who hunt Nazis, most of which are Jewish. Al Pacino is playing a Jewish man. He's decidedly not Jewish, so I think it's weird that they got him for like such a big role in the show. He's like super Italian, but he played it well, so it's like I can't be mad about it. I don't know. It's like not whitewashing technically. It's like white to another kind of white. I don't know. I don't know what the term for that. Anyway, yeah, who doesn't want to watch people kill Nazis? Nazis suck. And for some reason Nazis are topical right now because our country is a mess.
Yep.
So the show kind of came out at the perfect time because Nazis are running through the streets. But the show has a like some more nuance to it because even though the bad guys are Nazis and you think, yeah, just kill them all, the show kind of deals with Logan Lerman's character. He has an aversion to this kind of violence because he's not a serial killer. He's not a like psychopath. So it's like, yeah, you tell me this guy's a bad guy, but it's hard for me to watch you stick knives in his hands. I just got out the house reading comic books and now we're killing people. It's a little bit of a transition. But one of the things that I was thoroughly surprised by is that Ted Mosby, Josh Radnor, is one of my favorite parts of the show. He plays a character named Lonnie Flash, who is like this B-list 70s actor. And it's weird because he's an actor, you would think he'd be famous, but he also has to sneak around the city all the time. But he's like not famous enough that that really presents a problem usually. So he can like still go undercover because he's not like super famous. Like he doesn't get recognized a lot.
It's not like George Clooney walking into the spot.
Exactly. But he also talks about being an actor all the freaking time.
Mhm.
And he's like this weird, douchey kind of funny, which shouldn't work for me, but it really does. I don't know why. Maybe it's like the contrast of his comedy to like the darkness of the show. I don't know, but he's great. The ending is very controversial. I will not spoil it, but the last scene is pretty much off the walls insane. But I'll still watch it if season 2 happens. It's on Amazon Prime, as we said. It's good. I think I would recommend it, but with caution. If you struggle with violence or like, really horrifying Holocaust themes, then maybe stay away from this one.
Yeah, I had a friend who like started the show. I don't know if she finished it, but like heavy violence is not her thing. So because she was super interested in the show, but I think the violence ended up turning her off.
Yeah, that's very understandable. Like I was surprised Kayla watched it with me because she literally said she wasn't going to when the trailer came out. And then we ended up watching it and she liked it. It's a good show. Just not everybody's speed. But yeah, that's Hunters, Amazon Prime. It's Gabby's turn.
It's my turn. Okay. I missed Lucifer a lot a few weeks ago, or actually, no, it's like a month ago now. And I was like, I just want to watch Tom Ellis in something. And then my housemate's like, oh, Tom Ellis was on this one show that was like a sitcom in England right up until he did Lucifer. And I was like, what now? And I found the sitcom. It's called Miranda. It stars Miranda Hart, Tom Ellis, Sarah Handlin, and Patricia Hodge. And Miranda Hart is this English comedian. She's a very tall, kind of larger framed woman. And it's kind of about her navigating her awkward way through London. And it's like a very English early 2000s comedy. Like there's a laugh track, they make really silly jokes. And what I like about it is that like Tom Ellis, who's like hot, is her love interest. And she doesn't change herself at all for him to quote unquote fit. Like she's just herself and they're just like in love with each other. And he's just as hot as he normally is. And like they make a point at how hot he is. And they still end up in love. My one gripe about it though is because it's like early 2000s humor, they do say a lot of things about her and her body that
Kind of
and
body
make
shaming.
jokes. Yeah, they're jokes that were okay to make. Well, they weren't okay then, but jokes that were considered okay to make 15 years ago.
They were socially acceptable at the time.
Yeah, they were socially acceptable at the time and they're not anymore. And I'm somebody that does have a lot of like body image problems and like I do suffer from body dysmorphia. So it wasn't a show that I could watch all the like straight through. I couldn't marathon it because eventually it just like weighed on me a lot. So I do caution that part. But I did like that she ultimately does end up, spoiler, but I mean, they tease it the entire time. She does end up with Tom Ellis's character and they're super cute together. There's also a running gag that I like the way that they end the show. It seems rather abrupt when you first watch it, but they end the show kind of with a bow at the end. So like the end theme starts playing and they start like waving at the camera and you're like, "What's going on?" And you realize, "Oh, this is the end of the show." And then they all come out at the end and like bow to the camera. So it's like this is very much like a sitcom that we're putting on. They keep that gag the entire way through, which I really really liked actually.
That's adorable.
Yeah, it's so cute. I love it so much. And what's funny is like the one of the first episodes ends with like Tom Ellis running away from her because he keeps finding her doing like accidentally doing wedding things and they were like going to go on a date and so he thinks she's like obsessed with getting married and she's just like dang it. So he's like running away from her as like a joke. And then he like turns to the camera and like waves. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then she's like running after himself and she turns to the camera and waves. And I'm like, oh, this is like a thing. And then it's really cute. It's great. And they end every episode like that. So that's Miranda. It was an English show, like I said. It's on in its entirety on Hulu. It's a sitcom, okay? So it's not gonna be like super amazing, clever jokes. And it's very much a sitcom from the early 2000s. So, I mean, you could see a lot of the jokes coming a mile away, but it's still like very lighthearted and delightful.
Fam, some sitcoms are hella clever. But yeah, no, it's really interesting because Tom Ellis, I know everybody knows him from Lucifer, but I'm like, oh, it's the dude from Doctor Who or from Once Upon a Time because he played Robin Hood. Or he was also on Merlin for a while.
Oh, wow. And I only knew him from Lucifer, but I was like in a Tom Ellis mood. So I watched like 4 seasons. I mean, there's way more than 4 seasons. Let me see how many seasons of this show there are.
There's like, I saw it, it's like 6 or something.
Yeah. And he's almost in like every single episode.
I'm just used to him from his secondary roles in English TV.
Yeah. And this was like, he was a main guy, man.
So it's my turn. I forgot to mention with the last show that for the rest of this episode, it's just going to be nothing but Disney products.
Oh,
Fun.
wow.
So the next show on my list, I brought up last episode because I talked about their Comic-Con panel, and now I get to actually discuss the first season of the show, Motherland Fort Salem, which is on Freeform, but you can watch the entire show on Hulu.
Nice.
A trio of witches are trained to become powerful weapons for the American military. The show stars Taylor Hickson, Jessica Sutton, Ashley Nicole Williams, Amalia Holmes, and Demetria McKinney. I just want to start by saying this show is so different than probably anything I've ever seen, which is very difficult to say in this culture because there's so much content out there. But it is definitely very different. It's got some really interesting storylines. There are some really great, wonderful, complex characters that have amazing dynamics with one another, especially the main trio, Rael, Abigail, and Tally. I love how different they all are because in this universe, the Salem witch trials happened, obviously, but there are actual witches. So, witches were out here dying. And so General Alder is the person who made the treaty with America centuries ago and got America to agree to stop persecuting the witches in return for all of the daughters of the witches to basically enlist into the army.
Ah.
Interesting.
So every witch-born woman joins the military. So these three main characters all have very different perspectives on their service or going into the military. So Rael is very against it because she just recently lost her mother to a mission that her mother was doing. And she has letters from her mom where she kind of details what's going on the mission. And then you have Abigail, who comes from a very long line of witches. They're very well known. They are known as war heroes. Everybody in her family, like, she's basically upper class because she has such a status in the military. Her family has such a status in the military. And not to mention, her ancestor was one of the first witches to serve in the military back when Black people were still slaves. So it is a thing of pride for her. It is something that she must excel in. She can't afford to let her family down, which is very different than Rael. And even then, there's Tally, who comes from a family where her mother didn't want her to go to the military, and legally she wasn't obligated to go to the military because she's the last woman in her line. It was like, well, if you die, that's the end of your line. We don't want that to happen. Both of her mom's sisters died in the military. So her mom was allowed to not go to war. And then when Tally was born, her mom petitioned the court to make sure Tally didn't have to go. But when it comes time for Tally to enlist to make the call, she decides that she's going to go anyway because she thinks that there is no greater calling for her or for anybody really than to go to the military. So just both all of their different viewpoints of stepping into this world, they're in a unit together. So having them work together, like, it really creates this wonderful dynamic between all of them, which is really great. Demetria McKinney plays Anacostia Quartermain, who is their drill sergeant who trains them, and she's wonderful. I've been a fan of Demetria McKinney for years, since she was doing Tyler Perry plays. But yeah, the TV series is led completely by women. There's a lot of fascinating world building that goes on. There's a unique magic system that I have not seen in any type of show, media, whatever that has to deal with magic, which is really great. I am on my third rewatch. Well, I'm on my third watch of the show because I think it's really that great. And I really can't wait for season 2 to come out. It's super interesting and super intriguing. And I'm really interested in what this show actually has to say about the military industrial complex because they do bring it up on that show. So, yes, that is Motherland, Fort Salem,
Dope, dope, dope.
Dallas. Last round.
Last show. And back to Netflix. Yeah, the one I have written for this is this show might as well be called The Military is Dumb and Scientists Are Smart.
So like present time.
Oh, is that Space Force or whatever?
It is Space Force. To me, you are on fire today.
Space Force.
Thank you.
Have either of you seen this show?
I haven't.
I've seen the first episode.
Cool. Space Force was created by Greg Daniels, the guy who brought us the US version of The Office, and Steve Carell. We all know who that is. It stars Steve Carell, John Malkovich, Ben Schwartz, Diana Silvers, Lisa Kudrow, and Tawny Newsome, among others. IMDb summary: the people tasked with creating a sixth branch of the armed forces, the Space Force. It's a pretty vague summary. I had very high hopes for it because it was created by the guy who gave us The Office, as well as Steve Carell. It fell a bit short of my expectations for that reason. I built it up too much, but it was still funny. It kind of had to grow on me because like the first episode or two was just like, you know, they're kind of establishing things, but they haven't really gotten to the really funny stuff yet.
Yeah.
But then after that, it gets a lot funnier. John Malkovich is hilarious. He's like the head scientist who has to work with Steve Carell and try to advise him of like why all the things he wants to do are bad ideas, why they won't work. Steve Carell isn't quite Michael Scott in space, but he's like, I think it's like a sign of the times that when The Office came out, it was like 05. And Gabby, you were talking about the show you watched being like 15 years old and things that you would say are kind of different.
Yes.
Yeah. So this one is, even though we knew all the stuff Michael Scott was saying was bad, he didn't know it was bad. This character that Steve Carell is playing, he's aware of how there are certain things you can't say, but he's not super aware of which things you can't say. So he's trying to like tread lightly and not say certain things. But he's like, you know, he's not super socially aware. He's working on it. But he's also just like a military guy first. So he's like, you know, the Chinese satellite is trying to take our spot. Just like blow them up. And John Malkovich is like, wait a minute. Maybe we can talk about this with them. One of the standouts for me is Jimmy O. Yang. He's one of the scientists on John Malkovich's team.
That name sounds really familiar. Isn't he in Crazy Rich Asians?
I think so? Question mark. I know he has a stand-up that's like blowing up right now on Netflix.
He is in Crazy Rich Asians. He's cousin
But
Bernard.
he's not a
See the one that was having the birthday party?
Yes.
Okay,
I
yes,
think he
him.
was.
Yeah,
It's a
he's
smaller
very
part,
funny.
though.
Yeah, a much smaller part in that.
He made a very big impact for the small amount of time he was on screen.
Yes.
He did. Didn't he like shoot a rocket launcher into the water or something?
I think so.
Yeah, that's literally a big impact. But yeah, he's funny. A scene I think he's talking to Steve Carell's character. You know, he does his job really well, and someone I don't know if it's Steve Carell's character or somebody else is like, you know, he says something about like making your family proud or whatever, and asking like where they come from because he's Asian. So for some reason, people always ask Asian characters where their family comes from, and Jimmy's like, Baltimore. Oh yeah, he's funny. He has like a kind of subtle humor where he's kind of the straight man for most people, but he's great. The show is very funny. Don't build yourself up like I did for it. Just, you know, go in with. Oh, also, sorry, Lisa Kudrow. She is Steve Carell's wife. For some reason, her character is in prison.
Yeah. Do they solve that?
No,
Damn it.
we never find out why,
No.
but it's implied that she's going to be there like forever
Yep.
because they talk about like their relationship and like, you know, the dynamic, like, you know, I'm in prison now and I'm going to be here for a very long time. But I'm just like, she just seems like a perfectly nice woman. I'm like, what did you do that you're going to be in prison for like decades and we never get to find out why? Very funny show. I recommend it if you're into Greg Daniels, Steve Carell type humor. Also, they have very, very not subtle references to like present day politics and senators and the president. They don't ever say the president's name, but they talk about the president. And they're like, oh my God, the president's going to tweet about this, guys. He's going to be so mad.
I hate our president.
Yes, our country is stupid.
Trash.
And the show is very aware of it. But yeah, it's on Netflix. Check it out. Space Force.
Gabby, what's your last one?
My last one is Leverage on TBS.
I remember that.
I do remember
Yes.
that too.
I just wanted to watch a heist show or like heists, and this show is a heist every episode, and it's like a different creative heist every episode. So that's mostly why I was watching Leverage. For those of you that don't know, Leverage is a show that stars Timothy Hutton. It's to come out on TNT, and it's about a former insurance investigator that has rounded up a group of thieves in order to it's basically like Robin Hood. Like they're gonna rob from the rich or from the powerful that are taking advantage of poor people, and they're gonna give the money back to poor people or
That sounds
whoever
fun.
is disadvantaged, right? So you see like they take on a different case, and every time it's like, oh, it's like a poor hospital that needs money that was cheated out of it by this insurance company, or a small farm that has lost their horses in a fire because the dude that owns the land burned it down for insurance money, like stuff like that. And they go through and they find a way to help the people that were disenfranchised.
Hey, Gabby.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have to ask you this. You said it's like Robin Hood, yes?
Yes.
Ooh.
You guys remember Robin Hood from when we were younger with the fox?
Yeah. Yes. Like one of my favorite Disney movies.
We're gonna move on.
Why are we moving on? I just want to.
No, we're just gonna move on really quick because this has
Why are we
nothing to
moving on
do
really
with the Disney movie.
It's just I have a Robin Hood.
No, stop it
the
now.
fox.
Dallas.
Gabby, how do you feel about the fox and the Robin Hood?
I don't really have feelings about the fox and Robin Hood right now. This feels very forced.
Right
He
now?
was a
Didn't happen
badass. That's how I
No.
feel. He was a badass.
He was all right.
He was dope.
I haven't thought about that movie in years.
That's not true. You are lying to the audience.
And you didn't you know, this didn't happen as organically as it should have. So you know what? We're
Not
just
at all.
gonna move on.
That's fine. We can move on since we're like weirdly averse to talking about Robin Hood.
I like Leverage because it's a heist every episode. And every time you go back and watch it, like the hints of the heist are there, which always makes it extra fun on a rewatch, right? Because you start looking for the pieces and they fit perfectly. It's not like, oh, this came out of nowhere. It's like they really thought out the way that they were doing this. And the big reveal at the end is always like so much fun. So that's why I really like Leverage. It's generally lighthearted. Sometimes it gets like really intense. Like Timothy Hutton's character has like an arc where everyone's like, oh, he's definitely like an alcoholic. Like, how are we going to deal with this? They tried to look at it with humor at first, and then they dealt with it like a serious issue, which I liked. It's just like everyone on the show is really interesting and really great. And they all have like really cool specialized skills. So that's why I went back and rewatched Leverage.
Sounds like fun.
All right, and my last show, I'm going to go back to Freeform, is Grownish.
Hey, Grownish.
A spinoff of ABC's Blackish, Zoe Johnson is off to college and must live outside the nest, dealing with drugs, sex, and relationships along the way. The show stars Yara Shahidi, Trevor Jackson, Francia Raisa, Luca Sabat, Emily Arlook, Chloe and Halle Bailey, and Jordan Buhat. That show is so funny, especially Chloe and Halle Bailey's characters, Jazz and Sky, because they are absolute savages. I had to make a gif of Hallie's character saying, "I'm sorry. I forget that other people have feelings." I'm just like, "Wait,
Wow.
what?"
Goodness gracious.
Like the savagery. It's so hardcore. They're so funny. It's a really talented ensemble, really. I like Yara Shahidi. Sometimes Zoe gets on my nerves because Zoe is like the perfect protagonist girl who just makes a lot of mistakes. Like there are areas that she doesn't know about because she comes from a more well-off family, obviously.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so she's a little spoiled, and sometimes you watch the show and you're just like, Zoe, you can't be this obtuse. You just can't. Like, you cannot. The show ruined one of my favorite ships. It's okay. I will eventually move on. It made me so sad. Like they built up this really nice forbidden love arc between Trevor Jackson's character and Francia's character, Aaron and Anna, and it was going pretty well. And then after they finally like got the okay from Zoe's character that it was cool, it was like, okay, now let's ruin their relationship. And it was just like, why? We just did all
Wow.
that work to make it work. Why would you?
That sucks.
So when we got to season 3, they occasionally will reference the fact that they were together, and every single time I'm just like, this shouldn't be what it is right now, man. It shouldn't be. There was just something so fascinating about their relationship because Aaron is so liberal, pro-black, and Anna is a Latinx Republican. And so like
She's a what?
she's a Latinx Republican.
It's the worst kind
Yikes.
of Latinx.
But it was always fun because they were two characters who maybe they disagree on certain ideologies occasionally, but they were two people who could put each other in check and they would ground one another. So if one of them was getting too like out there with their ideas, they'd be like, "Yo, you need to check yourself. Like this is what's actually happening." And they were willing to compromise and kind of understand one another even if they didn't always agree. It worked so well and they had such great chemistry. And then they ruined it.
Oh, no.
It made me so sad. I was like, why? Why is this a thing? But yeah, really funny, talented ensemble, great character dynamics for the most part, as I kind of just described. I mean, it's a messy college TV drama. You're gonna have episodes where like they're trying to study for an exam, and maybe sometimes you gotta pop some Adderall to get through the night, or maybe you have a test that's the next day and you need to be studying. But there's this huge party going on at somebody else's dorm. Like, I don't want to miss out on that. I'll just, maybe I'll just give myself a curfew for how long I can stay at this party, which is never going to work out, by the way.
Nope.
I went to a party like almost last year at this point, and like I'm not even in university anymore, but like I was like, oh, I'll just leave the party at like midnight, and I didn't leave until like 2 a.m. That's never going to work.
It never works.
It never does. You say you're going to leave, and then just you don't. But also, the show often deals with social commentary quite often, same way that I'm sure Blackish does, or at least the episodes of Blackish that I've seen do. And I'm really excited for the second half of season 3 because I don't think that's aired yet. I think they had like their winter finale or spring finale or something, and I think the second half of the season is going to air next year.
I've always hated when shows do that. Just threw my whole thing off. Like I remember all the DC CW shows would do that. Like The Flash would be like, "Oh, it's the season finale, and then they come back like 4 months later.
Winter finale for them is like, all right, cool. We're going to stop in November or December because we have to give our actors, holiday vacations. And then we'll be back in like January, February. This is like, oh no, we stopped showing the show in like maybe March, April, May, and we're not coming back until next year, even though we've
Yeah.
already shot the whole season.
It is worse. I just never,
That is far
never
worse.
liked it.
I'm like, I know you guys are done. Just air it. But yeah, guys, that's all the shows we have for today because there will be more next time, probably.
There will be more. We're still watching stuff. We're still
My list is
quarantined.
still going.
Yeah, same. I have a very long list.
It's going to get shorter, but then it's going to get longer again.
What?
Like, I'm going to cut all of the shows that I just mentioned today off the list. So it'll be shorter,
I feel you.
but then it's going to get longer again.
Yep. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Or whatever.
Exactly.
But yes, thank you, audience, for listening to us tell you about TV shows. Let us know what you've been watching during quarantine to keep busy. Thank you, Crown Digital, Brandon, and I for putting us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you to me for editing, putting us on YouTube, and letting me know where I can see a Black King Arthur if I want to.
Got you. You know me.
Thank you.
I provide that information.
If I need some Black representation, I go to Demi. Thank you, Gabby, for giving me a new show to watch with Documentary Now, because I'm definitely going to check that out.
Oh my God, tell me when you do.
It sounds ridiculous, and I really want to see it.
It is. It's amazing.
Back to you, audience. If you want to talk to us about Nazi hunting, documentaries, Black King Arthurs, etc., you can find us on the medias. We're on Twitter at y'all_different. We're on Instagram and Tumblr at Creative Differences Podcast. And we're on Facebook. Just search for us. If you want to talk to me personally about Dave and Ozark and how Jason Bateman is a cold piece of work, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at a king named Simba.
You can find me, Gabby, on the Instagrams at Stegosaurus.
And you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Dreamy Films. Dreamy is spelled DREEMI. Thanks again for joining us on this quarantine watch.
And you can find Colin on Twitter at I am not okay with talking. It's all one word.
That's a good one.
Oh, we brought that gag back.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
You guys have actually been around for once.
Yeah.
It's been different.